Welcome to really wet Redwood Falls, Minnesota. For those of you that aren't from Minnesota that are here, we added it up. I think we're at just about 30 inches since we started planting grain this year of moisture. So it's a 0% chance of rain, and we're pretty much guaranteed to get 0.8 of an inch to 2 inches every other day the way it's been going here. So just while Mark had that fresh in my mind, when you get to the farm, those go into the row crops to corn, soy, and grains. You'll get on the semi-trailer. Livestock, I'll get on the fifth wheel trailer on the pickup, just so we don't have to try to explain that all when we get there. So, and parking, I'm going to use the picture. This is the picture of the farm. You will be coming down this road from town here. You can fill in out here. We'd prefer you come in and fill in. There's a spot here. You can fill it in, but please don't go down by the cattle barns, because it's a mess. So we should have plenty of room there. We got everything cleaned up. We should have plenty of room there. So we've been on this path for about 20 plus years. It's been a journey for us, and we're going to try and share that here quickly for you. So years ago, I currently serve as past president of the Minnesota State Cattlemen's Association. And years ago, as I was coming up into the leadership position there, I had to be interviewed to move up to presidency. And so I was interviewed by past presidents. And one of my really good friends, who was a past president, he asked me, he says, well, if we let you be president of the Cattlemen's Association, are you going to tell us how to farm and ranch? And I thought, wow, that's a doozy. So we put this disclaimer in. It really means nothing other than all we're here to do is try to help you be more profitable. We don't want to tell you how to run your farms. We can tell you a lot of stuff, what not to do, but our goal for these 2 days is to try to build some more profitability into all your operations. Because obviously we all know it's getting kind of tough right now. So like I say, we started in 1997. We bought out my parents. My dad had made a commitment to my mom that when they turned 50 years old, they were going to reassess their life situation. And their decision was to quit farming. So we started out, so we didn't have the generational push there. So Dawn and I started out, and Dawn didn't know how to run a riding lawnmower when I met her. So there's the constant questions of why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? So it, in a way, is a blessing, because it helped us change faster than most operations can change. I need to back up. So we grow corn and soy, a lot of corn and soy, but we also grow a lot of small grains. We got contracts for winter triticale, oats, cereal rye. We've done some peas in the past. So we do grow more than just corn and soy on our operation. We're 100% no-till. We cover crop every single acre, unless it's going to like a oats crop or something in the spring. Everything is seeded right behind the combine. So when we started out, we both loved the cattle, and we were always out of feed. Always out of feed. So we wanted to increase the cow herd and try to create more feed. And that's what led us down this path. So we started out with an NRCS contract. We took 47 acres that you'll see from our farm place there, and we split it into 9 different paddocks and ran the first 3,000 feet of above ground water line out. Immediately we saw a doubling of the grazing days, and it just fascinated me. I thought, well, if we could double it this quick, maybe we can double it again. So the push was on, and spent a lot of time searching for people that could teach us how to move cattle and increase the grazing days, or the time the cattle are grazing. So we just call it managed grazing. There's been so many different terms over the years, but basically what we're doing here, this paddock is at 47 acres we started out with. Even using the NRCS guidelines, we never grew grass like this. We were still spraying, fertilizing, and chopping Christmas trees in September, bull thistles. And then when we changed our grazing management, this is what we grow now without fertility, without herbicide, but through management. And this is what we're trying to mimic, is the way the bison grazed here in the past, before man was here. Huge herds pushed by weather, fire, predators, and long rest and recovery periods. So with all the rain we've had this year, you're going to see all kinds of stuff at our place. You're going to see a lot of abused pastures, a lot of overgrazed pastures, and you're also going to see what happens when we give it time to rest and recover. Tremendous amount of regrowth very quickly. So this is that same pasture that I showed of the grass up to the cow's back. This is what it looks like after we're done. When we initially started down this path, we moved cattle every single day. We had them pretty tight, pretty high stocking rates. We did learn quickly, that's kind of hard on calf performance, but it was tremendous to build soil. Absolutely amazing what we could change and fix by running those cattle that tight and moving that often. Right now, our cattle, the main cow herd is being moved daily right now. The cattle you're going to see are some grass finishers and some cull cows that haven't been moved every day because they're in some pretty rough terrain right now, but we're still watching what they're doing, and they aren't in any particular paddock for over 5 days. But you can see what we did here is we could put a tremendous amount of trample down. We took less than half of the forage off of there. So what we trampled here is our fertility and our herbicide program now. We're getting that forage to the soil so the biology can start working on it to make it into fertilizer for us. As I was studying grazing, I kept on hearing these experts talk about the latent seed bank. I thought it's voodoo. You can't have a latent seed bank. After 30 years of spraying a pasture twice a year, there can't be any seed left there. But through the management, obviously we brought back, there's over 40 different species in this pasture now. It's just amazing. Through the management, we can redevelop what was here. Obviously, water is key. We have well over 40,000 feet of water line laid out now. We've developed a lot of different things. We forgot to put it in here. Dawn's also got portable.
It's later.
Oh, it's later. Okay. So obviously, water is key. So we run a lot of water lines a long ways. This is what some of our really rough ground looks like. Like I say, we're using this management on all the land, whether it's rough, smooth, flat, introduced, native pastures, whatever it is. We're trying to do this type of management with all the cattle. I mentioned the latent seed bank before. This is actually where you will go today. This was corn, soy. This was row crop field. You can see we're right on the bluff of the river here. Very sandy, some clay in it. There was basically no black dirt there anymore. None. It was a clay colored texture, and we would have crop failure about 6 out of 10 years there. So Dawn and I just decided, well, we'll plant it to hay, take what we get. We'll get 2 cuttings a year. We'll be happy with that if we're in a drought. And I don't remember who it was, but somebody taught me you have to manage for what you want. So we started out with just straight alfalfa stand here. But we noticed that there was grasses starting to come back into that alfalfa stand. So we managed the cattle so that we only ever took 1 bite off of those grass plants. This took a very long time. It took 7 years to do this, but none of this grass was introduced. I mean, here, this looks like a lot of brome, but there's a lot of other grasses out there. By managing for what we want, we did this. We turned it into a very, very productive pasture system by watching what we wanted out there and not watching the alfalfa. One of our landlords, the first time we did this, one of our landlords, he pulled up right up in the yard. All he saw out there was alfalfa. He pulled up in the yard and he says, looks like you're going to kill about 100 cows today. I was like, what? He's like, you're grazing straight alfalfa. Little did he know that we had put apple cider vinegar in the tanks to buffer their rumen. And it was amazing watching those cattle. They went for that candy, the alfalfa, for less than a half an hour, and then they started grazing the grass. So if we give these cattle the opportunity to do what they do, they can do it. So obviously we alter our densities all the time. We try not to ever go through our rotations the same way. We alter our rest periods. You'll see it when you pull in our driveway. There's stuff that we're not going to graze again this year, more than likely, just so we get enough rest period on it. We alter the times of year we graze. And like I said, we have overgrazed some paddocks, and we know that. And we keep a calendar that shows us that, so we know we have to change the management on those systems. Obviously, through the last 3 years of drought, we overgrazed some pastures, and we know it, but we changed our management to adjust for that. This is the biggest thing I guess we learned out of the grazing side of it, is that if we manage correctly, nature is self-regulating, self-healing, and self-organizing, but it's up to our management to allow these things to happen, which is the rest and recovery period. So obviously this is big. Nation that destroys its soil destroys itself. I've been blessed to go to like where Russell farms. It's amazing. It's amazing how they've farmed for so many more generations than we have here in the prairie, and how much more degraded their soil is than here. But even still, I'm going to say it because I've witnessed it. I've lived here my whole life. What we've done here with John Deere and 600 horse in the last 10 years is mildly horrifying. We never used to have dust storms here in western Minnesota, and we have them every single year, even this year. Dust storms when we can't plant because it's too muddy. So things are changing. So we hope we can help you figure out your path to fix your own soils. So as we learned grazing management, I had no idea it was about the soil we were on. It never occurred to me it was about soil health. All I was worried about was forage production, feeding cows. And all of a sudden the light bulb come on, and it's like, this is about what's under our feet, what's under our cattle, what we're growing our crops on. So we abide by 6 soil health principles. Just about everything we do in our operation, we think of how these principles, our management decision, is going to affect these principles. So keep the soil covered all the time if possible. Yes, we take hay, but we make sure we try to keep a cover out there. Minimize disturbance, and by this, obviously, we went to no-till on all our acres. But the other side of this that we're learning a lot about is minimizing the synthetic fertilizers and herbicides that we're using. They also have a huge effect on the system. Increased diversity, like I said earlier, we've gone from just corn and soy to growing a lot of different crops and looking for more crops to grow. And increasing diversity, we no longer just have cow-calf operation. We do finish some hogs once in a while out on pasture. We got poultry out on the pastures, and increase the diversity that way. Keep living root in the soil at all times if possible. This has become huge for us. We'll show you pictures here a little bit. And integrate livestock, for us it was easy. We already had the cows, but we have the ability to, we run cattle on all of our land except for about 240 acres that we don't have fenced yet. And that's going to get fenced, and the cattle are going to be on there. So we've made it a priority to get those cattle across every acre.
So this is the piece that probably should be number 1, but I couldn't figure out how to redo the slides. So context is huge. Once this was kind of talked about, it's like, oh my God, when we first started doing the practices in, walking into this space and these new things, we didn't really take into consideration what our context was. We just kind of mimicked everybody else and thought, well, that's how we can do it. They're successful, then so can we be. And it didn't take very long for us to realize that that wasn't necessarily true. There's so many things that you have to take into account with this context piece, the context of your pasture, of your fields, your own social context, your family context, all of that. And all that can change in a blink of an eye. You can have an accident or, lose a family member or something like that. All of those things need to be taken into consideration when you're running an operation. And you just don't think about that context. Y'all have your context and you operate within those. And so we are still figuring out what that context is, across all of those different layers. And we're changing things pretty quickly. So just understand that what we're telling you now is our history, and you'll see what our present situation is out there. We'll talk about our current context when we're out on the farm.
So that was, excuse me, that was one of my big mistakes. Was I'd go to a conference or an event like this or whatever, and I'd hear a speaker talk about, oh, you can do this, and I didn't have the understanding of how soil functioned. And I go home and apply that miracle that I had just learned about. And we took some humongous financial hits doing that. So that's a huge part of context. Is the cool thing about right now in the industry is there's a lot of experts out here that you can talk to. I mean, our conservation districts have come a long ways in understanding this, and YouTube. There's a lot of stuff. So this is what we've changed our soils into, whether it's pasture or the row crop land. We can step across the fence and see this any time of the year from our neighbors. So we've changed it into what these guys all talk about, that cottage cheese look. And we no longer have yellow clay hills. We now have all black. That pasture that I showed you, those cows in there, you'll be able to stick a spade in there today and see we have rebuilt, I'm just going to say it this way, we have rebuilt topsoil. Even though the experts tell me that's not right. We're not building what they call topsoil, but whatever, it's black gold to me. So, so just going through the principles here, this is a picture from a couple of years ago. You can see on the right-hand side, I don't really have much cover on that soil. And so we monitored this all throughout the year, and it really makes a difference keeping that cover on there. What the situation was here was we were in the custom feeding business at the time. On the right-hand side of this picture would have been 400 cows out there through the winter being fattened. And on the left side, we had a fence up there. And we really learned a lot from this experiment. It's all the same corn, all planted the same day. And it really taught us a lot. The corn on the left did 259 bushels an acre. The corn on the right didn't make 200. And we could credit a lot to this is soil temperatures. Soils are just like us as human beings. They function best at 70 degrees. Anything warmer than that, our productivity goes down, so does theirs. At 100 degrees, we're starting to lose a lot through evaporation and transpiration, which would maybe be nice this year, but we'll still keep it covered. And at 130 degrees, we're not using any of that moisture for our crop. And at 140 degrees, soil microbes die. First time I saw these numbers and this stuff, I didn't understand how important that was. We've spent 20 years building the biology in our soil. And, well, Tucker's here. He got the phone call the other day. It's like, my biology's dead. We're so wet. My biology's dead. What can I do to rebuild it? So there are getting to be some products out there that can help with this. But it really was starting to affect our corn, and we got it turned around, I think. At least it looks that way. So obviously cover crops. Know what you're doing with these things. And like I say, we have built topsoil back. This pit was dug where road construction was done 10 years previous. You know how it is when they get done with a road construction project. You're lucky if you get any of your topsoil back. We cover cropped this for 10 years. We never took a cash grain crop off of it. We just cover cropped it and grazed it. And look at what we rebuilt into that soil. And I screwed up when we were doing this is right behind me here where I'm measuring, there's actually a pocket of gravel about 12 inches deep in the soil that was black. That's what we can do by following these principles. And we've been blessed to know Don Rakowski for a long time, but know what's below. You know, all these different cover crops have different rooting systems. You know, you can put together some pretty cool stuff. The other thing that I never understood, and I didn't understand how important soil organic matter is. Now obviously we're in these carbon markets, everybody's talking about carbon, carbon, carbon. But we have taken soils, in fact I think that's where we're going, Russell, is that cornfield was 1.8% organic matter when we started down this path. I don't know what the soil tests now, but I'm sure it's 5 or better. We've rebuilt that much organic matter into that soil. So each percent of organic matter that we're rebuilding holds about 20 to 25,000 gallons of water, which is good in a drought. Like I said, we put cover crops in everywhere we can. We'll start combining next week. We'll get the seed ordered as soon as you guys leave. So it is in the shed ready to be put in as soon as we start combining these winter grains. For our operation, this has been huge to get us into the winter with fat cows going into the winter. There's nothing that makes life easier than a fat cow going into winter. And we do this following these small grains. Here's a picture of a cover crop after a wheat harvest. And we still graze these the same way. Now we've got a lot of neighbors that are going down this path that don't ever run a cow across there. And they're seeing the same results as us. A lot less fertilizer needed, a lot less herbicide needed. But just look at the biomass that we can grow after these cereal grains come off now, especially with the moisture we're getting. Years ago, they said you can't plant corn green. That was a challenge for me. I'm going to do it. We've learned a lot doing it. The biggest thing was, and Dawn just learned this year, she just started planting corn this year. This was the first year planting corn. Auto steer is necessary. I planted for how many years? 7 years without auto steer on that planter. I'd have to quit at dark, be sick during the day with all that stuff moving in front of you. So if you haven't invested in that technology, we got to do it. But what we learned here is you need to change your fertility program. We front load not a lot of nitrogen, but we make sure there's nitrogen there, and we're spoon feeding nitrogen until these crops start decaying and feeding that corn crop. And we'll be able to show you that out in the fields. The one thing about this picture is that's not all cereal rye. There's a tremendous amount of vetch underneath there and clovers underneath there, so it's a multi-species, so we produced a bunch of nutrients for that corn crop. And this was what year? This was 2018, and this is the end of May. We're still planting corn, and it turned out very well. So we had been, I'll be honest about this, we had been interseeding all of our corn. We took on a tremendous amount more land. We don't have time to interseed. We just haven't found enough help and enough time to be able to get our interseeding done, so we seed afterwards. But I wanted to leave this in there. I don't know if Ryan made it here yet or not, but Ryan and I used to chop silage together, and Dawn and I chopped silage with him, and he said, Grant, he said, let's chop silage today. And I said, Ryan, less than 12 hours ago, we had 4.9 inches of rain. Yeah, but we're doing all these practices, these principles. We got water infiltration, we got soil structure. Well, obviously didn't quite have water infiltration here, but as soon as this water disappeared, there was no ruts to fix, and he seeded his cereal rye right away. Trafficability for us on our farm, I'm going to be honest about this. I was spreading urea in the rain for 6 hours 2 weeks ago. That's the type of trafficability we have in our fields. Was it a wise decision? Sure, I caused some compaction, but that corn needed that nitrogen, and it needed it right then and there. None of my neighbors were out. Nobody could go, but we could go, following these principles. So this is what I talked about earlier. If we don't have a cover crop growing in the field, this is how important it is to us. The drill is running right behind the combine to get something, that living root in the soil all the time. Yeah.
So this was actually a test field that we did to try to see how fast we could build soil health. And so it was what would you call it? Just a study.
Yeah.
It's a study that was done with Dr. Alan Williams and another organization. I can't remember.
Walton
the name
Foundation.
Of it. Oh, the Walton Foundation, yeah. And so this is like a 17 species mix that we had put out there after we took off oats and peas for feed. And then they came out and they were testing infiltration rates and just compaction or what's the other word?
Oh, they were testing fertility too.
Fertility, yeah. And then at the end of this, then we grazed that in the fall and winter. And it was amazing in 2 years what we were able to do to build fertility in this really, really beat up field. And we've kind of beat it up pretty bad, so we're kind of doing it again. So we know that we can heal with this diversity.
So the reason we wanted to keep this in here is we got 200 acres of prevent plant this year. We just never got it in. Well, the river's on part of it yet, but every once in a while in our farming careers, we'll get an opportunity to do this. And I highly encourage you to, you can do tremendous changes to that soil in 1 year or part of a growing season by adding a tremendous amount of diversity. Obviously, these seed dealers can help you. Other experts can help you with getting the diversity in there. This is kind of what one of those mixes look like. If you've never seen one, they are our apps. If you're using a drill and you need to calibrate a drill, there's apps you can use on your phone to get them calibrated pretty dang close. Because this can get expensive if we're getting it on too heavy. But this is what something like that looks like after it's froze many, many times. It was so thick we could not get our Kubota to go through it. We had to mow paths in it and grazed a tremendous amount of grazing days on it. So we try to set up different parts of our farm for this each year. So when we're bringing cows off of pasture, we got a place to go going into the winter. This was another great opportunity we got. This farm was 13 years of organic, massive amount of tillage. The landlords came to us and said, will you please come and fix our farm? So this was 600 acres. And we got the ability to put in a very diverse cover crop. We've improved things a lot there. I'm not big on tile, but this farm does need more tile. It's sitting full of water right now. But over the hills and stuff, we've changed a lot of stuff in this already. And once again, just remember that if our management, if we allow things to happen, nature's self-healing, self-organizing, and self-regulating. Even in the winter when we have to feed, we're still managing the movement of the cattle. We use portable bunks, portable feeders, whatever. These are moved every 4 to 5 days if we remember to do it. We just keep those cattle moving. We lost most all of our cattle facility in 2011 in a storm, and we decided not to rebuild. So our cows do not ever go to a barn. In fact, when you go to the place, the cattle barns are full of machinery. But we're blessed with a nasty native or noxious invasive species here called the red cedar. And we got 22 acres, that's solid cedar trees. It's a perfect shed for cows. They can go through a blizzard, come out, no snow on their backs. The one thing for the cattle people in here, we also noticed is the health of the cow is so much better being outside. Obviously, we got to protect them from the storms, and this happens. And David and I have had conversations about this. And when we started down this path, we were maybe too much of a purist. When I say no-till, when we switched to no-till, we did no-till. And we maybe shouldn't have. We should have maybe just reduced some of our tillage. Some of these new farms we picked up, we should have maybe done another tillage pass to get them smoothed out, or whatever the case is. And then obviously with the cattle in the spring, if we're not managing right, we get pugging. But this is about as much tillage as we do now. It's just a giant garden weasel is what it is. It's called the Phoenix Harrow. It'll run less than an inch deep. We can fix a lot of things quickly with that. And then in saying that, I had the field cultivator out this spring, so I'm being honest about this. You'll see it. It's still sitting outside. We had a big water retention basin done. Obviously, we had to do tillage. We got to do tillage to fix things, but know what you're doing and then start back on the principles to fix it again. So this is how we leave our pastures now. You know, we never used to grow forage like this in a good year. And we now leave more forage on our pastures than we ever used to grow. And obviously the principles with running the cattle across, this is what our row crop fields look like. This was taken in March. We already got earthworm activity, tremendous aggregation in the soil. I was super excited the day we took this picture. I couldn't wait to plant corn. And then we didn't get to plant corn until way late, but you'll see it. I firmly believe the only reason we got a crop out there is because of this. If you're going to start moving cattle or get cattle, it's got to be fast, simple. It can't be dreaded work. This Kubota box used to lay full of fence posts. Everybody was pissed off every day when they needed something else in there because they couldn't find it or couldn't put anything in there. So Dawn came to me with a drawing one day and she said, build this for me. So I built it for her. So we can hold enough posts and enough reels on there to build about 3 miles of fence and do it quickly. And this is key to that, is having something up front. Well, we changed that already. I need a new picture for that. But having something up there, so obviously I'm getting old and fat. Lay the post across my lap. I don't even get out to put up a fence. I just sit in the Kubota, step out, step the post in, flip the wire in, and just keep going. We can move 200 head of cattle in about 13 minutes from start to stop, putting fence out, rolling up the old fence, and then, like I said before, Dawn wanted movable water, so we built this. So moving all that in about 15 minutes, we can move 200 head of yearlings quickly on flatland, not in the river bottom, but this has to be quick, simple, easy, and enjoyable. Hit it again. Mm-hmm. So obviously the cow is tremendous in doing this. I'm just going to pick on Phil. He doesn't have cows yet, but Phil's got 600-700 deer that do this for him in the winter. Livestock integration, so if we let these cows do what they know how to do, they'll balance their diet out. You can see that cow is taking top plant material. Now she's going down for some candy there with the turnips and radishes and clover that's down in there. They're an amazing animal if we manage them right, and we can really help build soils back quickly with the cow if it's an option for you. And this is the type of grazing we have late in the season, December, January. We have been able to make it usually into January before we have to start feeding cows. But it's got to be the right piece of ground with the right protection for the cows and the right winter. I mentioned diversity before. We've added laying hens. We do run some broilers from time to time. Right now, one of our landlords is running the broilers this year and pasture raised hogs. We don't have any of them to show you this year, but what happened here? Obviously, this is huge in the news all the time. Clean water. We've been blessed to host politicians at the farm. Senator Tina Smith is one of them. And we showed her what soil health is about. We had Holly come out and run rainfall simulator, showed her our fields. And right away she said, well, what should I go back to Washington, D.C. and start? And I just looked at her and I said, please, ma'am, for the love of God, we don't need any more regulations in farming. What we need is education. That's why I'm so glad to see all of you here. So hopefully we can get this turned around before we are regulated. And this, I'm not against tile, but it sure would be nice if we could infiltrate the water where it lands so we don't have to put up with this. Where we pasture along the river, we have 10 creeks that run through the different pastures, and this is what we're seeing on all of them. Massive amount of erosion coming from the water up the hill through the tile lines. And our city cousins are getting pissed because we're filling Lake Pepin up and wrecking the Gulf. So we can change a lot of things by the way we manage on our farms. Obviously here in Minnesota, we got the clean water certification, which has been great for us. We take advantage of that program every year. We try to install something else. As we were learning grazing management, one of our first instructors was Ian Mitchell Innes from South Africa. Quite the unique individual if you've ever met him. But he said, if you build it, they will come, and then charge the hell out of them for it. We've gotten to that point where we could be charging a lot of money for whitetails, for any type of hunting, all that stuff. So there's a lot of different opportunities that we're not capitalizing on the farm because we have built it for all the different species of wildlife that are back. But the one thing we've learned going down this path is ask the animals, and they will teach you, ask the birds of the sky, and they will tell you, speak to the earth, and it will instruct you. That's right from the Bible. This is about observation. All of this is about observation and testing, but the biggest thing is observation. Just watch what's happening on your farm as you do different practices. And this is obviously a big one. We've been blessed to work with Dr. Jonathan Lundgren also, but he says no bees, no plants, no plants, no people. I never thought it was going to happen on our farm. We have made it now I believe it's 9 crop seasons. We've made it without having to spray for the soybean aphid. Do we have soybean aphids? Yes, we do, but we never get them to threshold levels where we have to spray. Now, some of these new farms we got, they still get to threshold levels. So as we changed management, things really changed. And obviously, this is a huge thing for us now, is education, education, education. That's why we decided to do this class, is hopefully we can help other producers be more profitable, enjoy farming, and keep regulation away from us in the egg industry. Anything else on that? So God blessed us with this life, and we must leave the land in better condition for generations to come. We hear this all the time, but if you practice these principles, it will change. The soils will be better. And that's it. Mark, do you want? I guess I asked Mark and David to coach us, but.
I think the only thing is that I thought was really interesting, you guys are talking about how you have to use tillage as a tool, and made me think of Ray Archuleta talking about the fist approach. And I really like the fist approach, right? Frequency, till when you need to, till with purpose. Intensity, how deep do you have to till, right? How fast? Scale, one field, whole farm, right? And timing, fall versus spring. So, I think that balancing that and using that in mind is the right approach, right? And so that's what I just wanted to add that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, switching to no-till planting in Minnesota was scary. And to be real honest with you, if I couldn't have made no-till planting corn work, we're switching back to strip tilling. Like Mark just said, reduce the intensity of the tillage is huge.